Hi, I'm Diane Poole Heller, and I'm a psychotherapist specializing in trauma recovery and the healing of early attachment wounds, especially as they affect our adult relationships. I'd like to spend the next couple hours with you really exploring how we can uncover and discover and free our deepest and most truest self, as well as how we can connect in our relationships with more intimacy, authenticity, and a safer vulnerability. This is a relatively big job because many of us are pretty used to looking at our cognitions, our belief systems, our emotions, even our body sensations, even our connection to our spiritual selves. But Dan Siegel calls learning to truly connect our biggest frontier as pioneers in really learning what is a relationship and how can we be deeply connected. You might ask, why study trauma and attachment? Well, I think those two topics get in our way from really being the most we can be, the most expanded part of ourselves. And when we have unresolved trauma, it can just limit our lives in a pretty major way. And when we have unresolved attachment histories, where really our original relational blueprint comes from, then these patterns that might not be serving us so well have a tendency to sneak into our adult relationships, especially our significant others, especially our marriage partners, especially people that we're spending our most intimate time with. So it's really worthwhile to take a look at where did this come from, make it a little bit more conscious, and then bring an understanding to how we can help ourselves heal and move in the direction of regaining healthy attachment patterns that will benefit from the rest of our lives and all of our relationships. So I'd like to invite you on this journey to understand where a relationship template comes from and how we can benefit from this investigation into our history and bring it into a much more productive and fun and fulfilling relationship space with people that we love.
One of the things that happens when we have any kind of trauma, or relational trauma would be like attachment injury, is that one part of it is that our nervous system gets deregulated. So normally we're kind of modulated, we're able to manage a certain level of stress and kind of take it in stride and, move through it and maybe have a little bit of upset, but it resolves. Sometimes when things are a little bit more intense, like maybe there's a big betrayal in a relationship, or there's been an abandonment or neglect, or other traumas like car accidents or surgeries, whatever, our nervous system that's kind of in that middle range starts to get like a zigzag, starts to get out of balance. And one of the ways it gets out of balance is that the sympathetic nervous system, part of the way we regulate ourselves and our bodies biologically, gets overactivated. We also have the parasympathetic that can take a deep dive like into depression or shutdown. But sympathetic will tend to take us to panic, anxiety, sometimes anger or rage. It's sort of an extreme of an emotional state. And then that's one of the things that we want to learn to help ourselves calm down, or help our partners calm down, or other people in our life to calm that sympathetic nervous system. That's something we'll talk about throughout the discussion today in terms of how we self-soothe, how we regulate ourselves, how we manage stress in general. And one of the challenges with anxiety in particular is when we start to feel it, it's not the most comfortable feeling, right? So we tend to, anxiety can sort of like be a wave that moves through your body and just discharges or releases. But often when we start to feel panicky or anxiety, we sort of constrict against it, and then it just sort of builds on itself. So that's the other reason it's important to talk about nervous system regulation and self-soothing and how we can calm ourselves. And most of us have friends that we can call up and say, hey, I'm struggling today. And just sometimes the sound of another person's voice, or they come over and have tea with you or whatever. We often regulate through connection, which is really where the healing early attachment injuries comes in, because it's one of the main ways that we as humans all over, whatever gender we are, whatever nationality we are, whatever race we are, whatever group we are, we regulate in connection. And that's one of the ways that I think that learning a little bit more about our relational template that attachment kind of brings us, even when we're little infants, how people are relating with us, how we absorb, how people are relating with each other around us, like moms and dads, or dads and dads, or moms and moms, just however that is, the caregivers, we're also absorbing as babies how they're interacting, and then also how they're interacting with us personally. So we start to create a relational template. And if that's a really healthy one, yay, we sort of win the jackpot, win the lottery. And if it's not a very pro-social family and there's still some traumas that people are working through generationally and that affects our parenting, then sometimes we have attachment injury to manage later on.
And as we're going to get into, of course, there's different types of attachment that we can experience in childhood, which can have some significant ripples then through our lives in terms of how those play out in our relationships. And I think perhaps a helpful way to give a little bit of context of that is to talk about secure attachment. As you say, that's sort of like the yay, if we're fortunate enough to have that experience. But say a little bit about some of what the characteristics of secure attachment are, both in terms of how we might experience that in childhood, but also how that may then present in our adult life.
I think that's a great place to start. Secure attachment, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. And then also that we can learn it. The hopeful message here, I really want to underline like 5 times, is that we can learn secure attachment skills, even if we didn't start out with secure attachment. So when I'm describing the insecure attachment, just take all that pressure off your shoulders, be gentle with yourself and especially listen to what we can do to bring ourselves back to secure attachment if we didn't start there. But secure attachment is a little bit like winning the lottery for the relationship, healthy forward way that we're going to meet and connect with people. It certainly can be disturbed by trauma later on. But usually if you have it as a foundation, it's a little bit easier to get back to. So secure attachment involves, I'm going to focus mostly on caregiving patterns with the time we have. I mean, your attachment styles are influenced by medical procedures when you're young, or your mom had to go to the hospital and she wasn't there for you. You didn't understand that as an infant. Your temperament coming in. There's other things that influence attachment besides caregiving, but we're only going to talk about caregiving today just because of the constraints of time. And basically, secure attachment is more than having 3 meals a day and a roof over your head. That used to be what I remember my mom saying to me, "You have a roof over your head. What are you complaining about?" Like, I could use a little more than that. I mean, that's very nice. It was that simple, right? Roof over my head, and so one of the couple things. First of all, is our capacity to be present, just to show up, to be there in our essential selves, not be distracted, not be stuck on a phone and a device, to really be present with someone is a huge gift. So, we've been a little challenged with that with, the pandemics and all this being more isolated and having to be on devices more. We were able to do this today because we're on a device. So I'm very grateful for that. It has its uses for sure. But we want to make sure we're not having more of a relationship with our devices than we are with human beings, actually in person, when we can have that happen more in a safe way. But being present. And then if you were going to give the shortest definition of secure attachment, I would say attunement, being able to not only be present, but really aware of what's happening in the other person relationally, what's happening in you as you're being with someone, and also what's happening in the relational field between the two of you, the dynamics that are going on, maybe realizing the impact of your behavior or your hopefully empathy or your ability to be present. The other part of secure attachment that's really highlighted is protection. Feeling safe inside your relationship bubble, whether that's parent-child or partner-partner or colleague at work or friend or even stranger. How you create a safe space in the relational field, and you're protective of yourself, and you're also protective of any other person in that relationship kind of container or bubble, and you're protecting your family or your loved ones from attacks from the outside world or judgments or things that are uncomfortable, but you're also protecting each other even from yourself, that you're going to be a presence of safety and protection. How you do comings and goings, like how do you wake up in the morning with your family? Is there contact? Is there joy? Is there laughter? How do you go to bed at night? Maybe you and your partner have different bedtimes, but I have a friend that has a ritual. I love this. She and her husband love chocolate. So they buy each other these very special truffles. And every night they put a different truffle on their bed pillows. And then as they're enjoying the truffle that they've given each other, they are debriefing the day and cleaning up anything relationally that might have disturbed their equanimity as a couple.